welcome to John Paul White and Rosanne Cash, both multi-talented, multi-hyphenated writers, singers, performers. It's a pleasure to have this time to speak with both of you. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here.
So you both recently released We're All in This Together Now, which sounds like something written just for this moment, but was actually something you two had been working on for a while. What was the initial impetus for the project, and how has that evolved into something that seems specifically to respond to this crisis?
Well, John Paul and I were already friends, and we had done, I think when we first started talking about it was when we did Transatlantic Sessions, wasn't it, John Paul, don't you think?
I believe that's right. That's when the nucleus of the idea started, for sure.
It was this gathering of Scottish and Irish musicians and American musicians, and we did a couple shows together with them. It was great, and we started talking about writing together. And I mean, for me, it was post-election, and I was feeling a lot of despair. And so he asked for some lyrics, and I had started writing those lyrics about, well, we're all in this together now. But, you know, and I sent it to him, and like you were talking about, it was finished and sitting on the shelf. And then at the beginning of quarantine, he called me and said, let's do this.
Yeah, the lyrics came to me pretty much in poem form, and as you hear it in the song is pretty much how it was written. There was, editing for length of sentences and phrasing and things so that it fit with the melody that I came up with. But the melody, and this tends to happen as you read something, it always has a cadence, it has a phrasing, and she's not writing like a poet per se, because she knows that it's going to be, it needs to have a flow, it needs to have meter, and so I could pick up on that really quickly. And so I can't explain how those things happen, but a melody just was born as I read it. And it was
that's the best way too, isn't it?
There's no other way.
There's no other way.
There's lyric that you get as well that it conjures nothing, and it can be brilliant, but it's written by someone that's not necessarily quote unquote from our world, and so it just feels left-footed and it feels forced when you try to put it to melody. So it's a perfect world when you get a lyric from somebody that's also a melody writer. So it was easier than you would think.
I think I tend to write, talking about meter, I tend to write in onomatopoeia, and it lends itself well to these kind of postmodern folk songs or folk songs. And John Paul writes that as well. And like you said, somebody who writes both lyrics and melody, we speak the same language. But there was this moment of like tension and anxiety, like, am I gonna like the melody that he sends back? And then it came back and I was like, oh, it's perfect. We know what the song is.
We also have a good enough relationship that I feel like
we would have said something.
Rosanne would have said, I like this part. it would have been put, positive, negative, positive, but when she came back, I love it. Then, I felt like I needed no other direction, and so I did a guitar vocal of it at the time, and she was making a record, I was making a record, and it just didn't seem to fit. It didn't seem to coalesce with the other songs in the project. It felt left-footed compared to the other stuff, and that never really has anything to do with quality. It's just
curation.
Yeah, we're still album people. We grew up that way, and we fight that urge for it to be, the record needs a little more of this. It's got too much of that. I've said this, I haven't said that. This tempo is, I've got 7 songs with this tempo kind of thing. All of it goes into it, and it just didn't work for either one of us at that time. And
But
yeah,
also, there was something mystical happening, I think, as it was waiting for the right moment.
I think you're right. I don't always subscribe to that.
I don't either, but this time I do.
Yeah, my faith has been tested, and I'm looking at this a little bit more spiritually than I normally do.
Yeah, I kept thinking about that as I was listening to this, just like, could this be coincidence? But I, whether it's spiritual or mystical, the thing that I think about is just how this is what happens with art. That like you have Picasso and Braque at the same time, essentially inventing Cubism because of what's happening in the world. That there's artists anticipate that socio-historical moment, and it hits when it's supposed to, and then resonates because it works. And yeah, I just find that to be fascinating.
That is not, I mean, we're certainly not the first people to find that out. I've read a lot, because I found this to be true in my own writing, and I've read other writers, prose writers, say this a lot about the anticipation, and songwriters as well. I mean, I started calling them postcards from the future. You would write something and grow into the experience or the idea. I remember the most stunning time that happened to me was that I wrote this song, Black Cadillac, about death, about my father's death before it happened, like the year before it happened. And when I finished writing the song, I actually said to myself, oh no. And I got scared.
Yeah.
So that's not the only time that's happened. And also, you're talking to yourself when you're writing songs, and other writers have said they write to understand themselves, or they write to know what they're thinking, they write to know where they're going. That happens to me quite often. I don't know if that happens to you.
Flannery O'Connor, I think I said, I write to discover what I know.
That's right. Yeah.
I love that.
That's beautiful. I think there's a lot of times I get to the end of a song and am nowhere near the starting point, nowhere near what was the nucleus of the idea. And
right.
And if I had set out to write the song that I ended up with, I'd have never been able to write it. And we've both said that about this song, is that if we'd been sitting in the middle of this quarantine, it would have been colored by it. It would be, there's things that we probably wouldn't say because we'd feel like they're on the nose because we're right in the middle of it. And being out of context, we were free of that getting in our way, and we could just say what was supposed to be said, and instead of overthinking it.
Well, and you had the opportunity for the personal to become universal in that way, where you could say specifically from a perspective or point of view, and because it was so specific, it feels universal in a way that when you have these songs that respond to crises or moments, they tend to be like catchphrases, or they lack that connectivity or specificity, which is ironic, saying that you guys basically anticipated the phrase of the pandemic and writing this somehow magically.
That's why I've kind of shied away from writing overt protest songs, because they tend to be proselytizing and preaching to the choir and too cliched, like you were saying. And this song, it's certainly not cliched, but it is a little on the nose, which is shocking that we wrote it in advance and that it is so. And I even thought about that, is this too on the nose?
Same.
And then I thought, people need this right now.
Yeah,
it's important.
I agree. Every time I'd see the phrase, "We're all in this together," or "We're all in this together now," I'd cringe.
I know.
Like, stop posting that. You're hurting my song.
I do too, John Paul, and I wrote the damn thing.
Little did you know.
Little did I know, and also because a lot of people have said it now. They weren't saying it when I wrote the song,
right? When
I wrote the lyrics.
No.
I mean, you couldn't have known that American Airlines was gonna let us know that we're all in this together now.
I know. We should call it something else.
No.
Okay.
No.
Well, one of the things that I really admire, and I mean, this was giving me chills listening to it, was how you were able to work the tension of the lyrics and with the music. And yeah, we're talking about this, touching on this a little bit before, but specifically, I think the line for me that pulls it all together is "It's a lonely world, but it's our only world." And there's like that walk down, and John Paul, you start it, and then Rosanne, you come back in, it comes back up, and then you join together for the chorus. And I kept thinking about how that's like, for me, the perfect encapsulation of the tension that we see right now. And to me, there seemed to be an exploration of like how we find that connectivity despite limits on physical proximity.
Absolutely. And if we ever thought we weren't connected to everybody else and every other thing in this world, we see it now, right? I mean, it's a really deeply unfortunate way to get woken up to that idea of connection between all people, but
Yeah.
hence wake up now.
Yeah.
That line.
I mean, whether you like it or not, whether you think you're an island or not, you're finding out in real time that that's not the case.
Not the case.
And we're in a situation where I'm usually gone and my kids and my wife are usually home because we homeschool. So this is a little less, has been a little less of a, you know, an earthquake for them because they're used to being here and surviving on their own, being very, very independent. But they've got friends, and their moms and sisters and brothers, and they're all right here in this town, and we can't see any of them. And it's okay for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks,
5 weeks.
Yeah. Now my dad's coming over and standing outside the door talking to me, and he can't take it anymore.
Oh, that's so sweet.
And I worry, you know, a lot of people are getting there too. And my dad's in that age range that he needs to be at home. And, but he's a very stubborn man. And he's also like, you know, take me away. I can't live like this. So, and I worry, you know, a lot of people are getting that quarantine fatigue, and that we're going to make some mistakes getting back out there a little bit too quickly. And I pray that people that are in states that aren't making them stay home, I hope people are going to be reasonable about this and not try to do everything too quickly.
Well, I'm in New York City, and we certainly aren't doing things too quickly. I mean, I really follow the governor's, we follow his guidelines, you know, we're not getting out there too quickly. It's too dangerous. It's been like living in a Petri dish. It's scary, and it's sad. It's really sad being here.
So I talk a lot with writers about the solitary experience of that type of work, but obviously the other parts of your jobs involve a lot of physical experiences and creating intimacy in shared spaces. Have you found ways to, I guess, find that connectivity in this new virtual space, and what will that look like for touring musicians?
Well, I would say that, you know, there's a lot of pros to this new streaming situation. There's a lot of people that you reach that either they live out in the middle of nowhere and can't go to shows, they don't have money and can't go to shows, or they have high anxiety with crowds. They don't want to be in a bar. They don't want to be around alcohol. They don't want to be around other people. Or they're a stay-at-home mom or stay-at-home dad. And so going to live shows is just not an option. So we're reaching a lot of those people. There's a lot of people commenting saying, this is my first live show, or it's my first in 10 years kind of thing. So I hope we don't let go of that, because we're really connecting in a way we weren't before, which makes, you know, little sense that we're stuck at home, but we're connecting in new ways that we never had. I don't think that's something that obviously we can pay our bills doing. You know, we have to get out there and do our job. But the other side of it is that physical connection in a room with a live performer is something that cannot be duplicated. It cannot be pirated. And we need that as much as you do.
Right.
So, I mean, it's lifeblood for a lot of us that I need the connection with the person in front of me to make the transaction complete. If I didn't, I'd just write songs and sit on my back porch and play them to my babies and sleep in my own bed. But there's some psychotic need on our part that the transaction has to be completed between one or two or three or a million other people, and you feel like you've connected with them, you feel like you've moved them, that you've articulated something that they can't, and you're finding out things about yourself and they're finding out things about themselves through the music. And that can't really happen on a visceral level unless you're sharing the same air. And on the other side of that too is, as co-writers, obviously Rosanne and I wrote this from 1,000 miles away, and that can happen. But more often than not, in my world as a co-writer, you need to be in the room and you need to feel the energy. You need to hear them take a quick breath when you say something that moves them. You need to hear their voice sing in harmony with you as you're singing, and their guitar playing, and sense their hesitation when you say something they don't like. And when you're disconnected like this, it just really hurts the process, and you don't make a really living symbiotic organism as you would when you're on two ends of a cable line.
I mean, that's well said. All of that. I've been on the road a long time, and I was getting burnt out. So these last 5 weeks I just have loved being in my house. I almost feel guilty saying that because I know some people are having a really hard time.
I'm with you.
But I haven't minded that so much. But I have been, in fact, I was talking to someone about this morning. I have been rethinking my future. How long will this be going on that we can't get out there? Because touring is rife with risk as far as illness. You get on a plane, you're through an airport, you get in a car, you have a driver, you go to a venue, you're backstage, there's catering, you go to a hotel, you go to a restaurant, you go back to an airport, and you've got a stage crew there, and you've got physical things you have to work with, microphones that can become dangerous. So all of that has to be reconsidered. And, I'm older than John Paul, and I start thinking, well, I mean, what is worth it? How much risk do I want to take? And at my age, at the same time, like he said, that connection, that chemistry you create with a group that just happens in one night.
Yeah.
It's so special. It's so special. And this has a very limited feeling of connection. But also I have thought about what you said, John Paul, about people who don't have the discretionary income to come to concerts, or who live so far out from a city that they can't come, or, and to reach them feels really satisfying. I think if this goes on a while, it might evolve. The platforms might evolve so that we can feel more connection. Not sure how that looks yet, but it might.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Well, I want to take some time to also talk about the greater cause that this release is supporting. So the release of We're All in This Together Now, proceeds go to benefit the Music Health Alliance. So why was this the right organization to partner with?
Well, they are based in Nashville, but they work with musicians around the country. What their central goal is to find health insurance for musicians who are in need, because we're all freelance. Our employer is not giving us health insurance. So they help people who are in dire straits, a musician with a brain tumor who has to have surgery and whose savings will be wiped out. They turn over every rock to find every possible situation of health insurance to put together to get enough to pay for what they need. Since the tornado in Nashville, they've been getting a lot of very small grant requests. I mean, the one that really broke my heart, I heard a couple of weeks ago, right after the tornado, is somebody wrote a grant request for just enough money to buy diapers. And she did, you know, had Tatum, she was in tears, like, I gotta find this money for these people, because the tornado just put it over the edge. And now the pandemic, oh my God, there are so many musicians who lost tours, who lost record releases, who lost festivals, who lost everything, and who can't pay their rent and who can't go to the doctor. So I felt it was important. I brought it up to John Paul and he agreed right away.
Daddy was a Baptist, and your mama loved to dance. You were born in Memphis, but you live in Paris, France. You may lose your faith in everything, you may take a solemn vow, but from this day on, my friends and foes, we're all in this together now.
One of the recurring things with both the song and in this conversation is this interesting dialectic between tragedy and redemption, or joy and trauma. And it's explored really beautifully in the accompanying music video, where you see, you know, a grandmother meeting a grandbaby for the first time, wearing a mask through glass, where it's both joy, but it's also incredibly tragic. And we've spent a lot of time talking about the traumatic and negative components that are inherent with this pandemic. What are some of the things that have felt joyful, or experiences that you've had that have brought you back to that elemental love of what you do?
Well, the 7 p.m. cheer in New York City for the healthcare workers, it's like every night at 7, I so look forward to going out my front door and everybody hanging out their windows and their doors and applauding and for the healthcare workers, and this guy down the street is blasting Tom Petty or, you know, Gloria Gaynor at the top of the volume. It's so great. That's given me joy. And little things that I never did before, like a whole family Zoom, you know, like they're around the country. So to see everybody at once has been great. And to force my 21-year-old to spend time with me has been awesome.
I can definitely speak to that. I'm as you know, a touring musician, I'm gone all the time, and so luckily my kids like me. You know, I'm sure there will be a phase down the road, but at the moment I've got them all ages, and we genuinely love each other's company, and that's been fantastic. To guilt-free be at home, you know, not be thinking I should be packing my bag, I should be changing strings on my guitar, I should be writing another song, I should be calling so, and no one's doing anything, and I don't have that hanging over my head, so I can just completely give myself to what's going on in our house. We already homeschool, so, you know, that's been easy. And then outside of that is these live streams that I've done. I've been trying to be judicious about it so that they have worth when you do them. And I'm not just doing it every day, but watching the comments is so distracting, but it's so heart lifting, because most of them, it really doesn't matter what you're singing. It really doesn't matter if your signal is horrible and your guitar sounds like it's in a blender because the speaker sucks on your phone, everyone's just like, oh, thank you just for being here. Thank you.
Hearts.
Yeah. Thank you for taking me out of this Groundhog Day that I'm living. And man, we all have egos. We do. We wouldn't do what we do if we didn't have a little bit of that. And it really feels good. And I don't feel bad saying that. It feels good to help and to make people, lift people's spirits. It's, you sleep really well at night. And I'm not going to go so far as to say that I dread the end of this, but there are things I'm going to really miss about this era we're in right now.
You know what I've enjoyed too? It's a little quirky, but the lack of artifice. Like, everybody's got gray roots now. And well, all the women I know do. And, you go on, you're not all done up, and it's just kind of pure communication. Yeah, I wish I got more. I don't know how to make myself see comments, John Paul. I have to do that, but
don't do it in real time.
Okay.
It's so distracting. You can't form a thought because you're reading.
Yeah,
people are requesting things, and
I did a mindfulness meditation that Cheryl Crow was doing the other morning, and people were commenting while she was doing a 20-minute meditation, and I'm like, this is the craziest thing that I've ever experienced in my life. So I had to put the phone down because it was like, is she asleep? Did I just find Cheryl Crow sleeping? It was comment, and it's like, it was actually this is probably if you can meditate through this, you deserve to live in Nepal or something.
My daughter and I are going to do an online Zoom yoga class together this weekend. I'm looking forward to that.
That's great.
Well, thank y'all so much for taking this time. John Paul White, Rosanne Cash, We're All in This Together is out now. Proceeds go to the Music Health Alliance. Go check it out. Thanks everyone for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you. Together now.